What does it really mean to be popular? If you aren't, it's probably something you've wondered about. Maybe you imagined how thrilling it would be to be liked or admired by everyone. What a perfect life, huh? Wrong. It's exhausting. Before I continue my wild story, please hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss out on any other great stories like mine. Hi, my name is Carmen, and for a very long time, I knew what it was like to be important and well-known. I came from a very wealthy family. I was 16 years old, and I had one older brother. His name was Jacob, and we looked nothing alike. Because he had already moved to college, I was the only child left at home. I think this was why my parents let me do anything I wanted. I was their precious little girl. I was best known for hosting the most extravagant parties. Everyone knew about me. At school, everyone wanted to be invited to my house on the weekend. At first, my parties were just ordinary, but after a while, I decided to have themed parties to make them more exciting. My parents let me have at least $1,000 to buy whatever I needed. Drinks, decorations, entertainment, anything. It was great being rich. I had a whole Instagram account with thousands of followers just for my parties, and even people who weren't from my school would come. Apart from my very active social life, I had some pretty amazing friends. My best friend was Mia. She lived across the street in another mansion, and she always helped me plan my parties. I forgot to mention that I had the world's perfect boyfriend. Chris was tall, handsome, and a quarterback on the football team. Your typical hunk. I guess you could say he was like the male version of me because he was just as popular and rich. He always got me the best gifts and treated me like a total princess. Anyway, everything was fine until it wasn't. My life began to spin out of control and there was nothing I could do to stop it. It started while I was having lunch with Mia and some of my other friends at school.
Do you know that Camilla is having a huge party next Saturday? She says it's for her birthday, but that's the same day of your Hawaiian pool party,
said Melanie.
Oh, I didn't know. Well, maybe you can just push the party back a bit. It's no big deal.
Mia. Of course that would have been the reasonable thing to do, but I was angry. So angry. Camilla had been my biggest rival since kindergarten. Although I was more popular, she was always trying to compete with me. She copied my clothes, shoes, bags, and now she was trying to steal my parties. Jealous trash. No, I'm going to make mine bigger and even better than Camilla's. I don't care if it's her birthday, I replied while my friends just stared in silence. I got to work that night and started advertising my Hawaiian pool party. I asked my parents for $2,000 extra and told everyone that 2 lucky people would win the latest iPhone. I did everything I could to ensure that people came to my party instead of Camilla's. When Saturday finally came, I was beyond myself with excitement. The decorators came early and made my pool area look just like a beach. I had palm trees, beach balls, real sand, everything. We even added salt to the pool to make it taste like seawater. My party was supposed to start at 3 o'clock, and by 2:30, people were already arriving. When there was at least 100 people there, I said to Mia, "Hey, let's take a short drive to Camilla's house to see if anyone went to her party."
Okay.
Mia sighed while rolling her eyes. We drove over there and only 3 cars were parked in the driveway. What a flop! I laughed. We went back to my party and continued enjoying ourselves, but around 6 o'clock, I noticed that many people were leaving. What's going on? Where's everyone going? I asked.
Well, look. Camilla went live on Instagram and, well, see for yourself,
Melanie said. I grabbed her phone and looked. Then I was shocked. 2 of the biggest pop stars were at her house. I'd never had any celebrities at my house before. I turned red in the face with anger and jealousy. A few minutes later, everyone but Mia had left my house. Even my boyfriend left.
I'm really sorry, Carmen, but I need his autograph. I'm going to Camilla's party,
Mia finally said and walked away. I couldn't believe that everyone had betrayed me. I hated everyone. The next week at school was horrible. Now Camilla seemed to be more popular than I was, and she even offered for people to hang out with the pop stars the next weekend. Everyone wanted to be her friend. A few weeks passed, and although I was still a bit popular, I began to fade into the background. Only about 20 people came to my parties because Camilla always had someone famous at her house. I don't know how and where Camilla was meeting all these celebrities, but there was a different one at her house almost every week. She started thinking she was more important than me too. Every time she passed me in the hallway, she'd just give me an evil smirk. I just rolled my eyes at her. I began spending a lot of time at home by myself. I taught myself a few new hobbies and began to read more books. I thought that there was no way my life could get worse than this, but I couldn't have been more wrong. One evening, as I just began watching an episode of my favorite show, my parents walked into the living room looking extremely sad, like someone had died. "What's wrong? Have you run out of money or something?" I asked.
No. Can you turn off the television for a while?
I turned it off and they sat next to me.
We have a confession to make, and we hope you won't become too angry at us.
"A confession? What is it?" I asked.
Well, have you ever wondered why you and your brother look nothing alike?
No, not really.
Well, we adopted you when you were 2 years old, and apparently something was wrong with our paperwork, because we were just contacted by the authorities. Your biological parents want you back.
Is this some kind of joke? I was bewildered.
I'm sorry, darling. No, it's not. I know that this is a lot to digest at this time, and we've asked them to give you a little more time. You'll be going to stay with them next week. We are so sorry. Please never forget that we love you like you're our own daughter, and we'll never see you differently, even when you're living away from us.
Where do they live?
Not too far from here. You'll still be able to go to the same school, so your entire life won't change.
Can't you all fight against this? I don't want to go live with some strangers. They said nothing and continued to look devastated. I cried myself to sleep that night. The next day, I couldn't go to school because I was crying all day too. This was the most horrible news I had ever received in my life. But it got worse. The next week, I packed my things and got ready for my parents to drive me to my biological parents' house. We left our beautiful community with its rich people, mansions, and swimming pools and entered a very poor, sad-looking neighborhood. It looked like there were many homeless people on every corner. Stray animals walked around looking like they hadn't eaten in days. Not many people looked happy.
We're here.
I stared out of the window of my dad's Ferrari and nearly burst into tears again. "You can't leave me here," I wailed.
We have no choice, honey. We're so sorry.
My dad said, looking like he was ready to cry too. The house was practically falling apart. 2 windows were missing upstairs and the walls were filthy. I imagined that it couldn't be better inside. We walked to the door and knocked. A man and woman opened it together.
Carmen, our lovely daughter. We are so happy to see you after all of these years.
They invited us all in and we sat in the living room where there was one old soiled couch and an old-fashioned television which was turned off. They offered us some snacks, but I refused to touch anything in that filthy place. I think that the mom and dad I grew up with were very angry that my biological parents wanted me back, but for my sake, they chose to remain calm. After they left, my new mom and dad, Janet and George, showed me upstairs to my room. It was smaller than the laundry room at my old house. I had a tiny old bed, a small desk, and a wardrobe. Janet decided to stay in my room for a while to talk to me.
I'm sure you're a bit upset and you're wondering why we put you up for adoption. We are so sorry, and we really didn't mean it. It's just that you were our firstborn and we had no money at all. We always intended to take you back after we became a bit more comfortable. We both have jobs now, and we don't make much, but it's enough. We're in a better position now.
It really doesn't look so, I sighed while rolling my eyes.
Well, I'll let you get settled and then you can come to meet your brothers and sisters.
I didn't even know I had brothers and sisters. How did they all live together in this dump? Later, I met my 2 little brothers, Jake and Harold, and my 2 little sisters, Haley and Savannah. I wondered why my parents kept having children if they were so poor, and why on earth they decided to drag me into this mess. Luckily, I still had my laptop, my phone, and all my other gadgets. As I sat on my bed that night, I realized that I'd have to go to school the next day. What would my friends think if they found out I lived here now? I'd have to lie about everything. The next day, I had to take the school bus because Janet and George didn't own a car. I walked far away from the house and took the bus when it passed. When I got to school, my boyfriend Chris saw me walking in.
Hey, how come you took the bus this morning?
He laughed. Well, I'm trying out this new experiment to find out how other people live. It's wild. All those people in one bus? My lie was good enough for him. As we walked down the hallway, a few people stopped me to ask when the next party was. I had to continue lying. I told them that my parents were away for a few weeks and that I wasn't allowed to have anyone over until they got back. They accepted this and moved on. But it kept getting worse and I continued having to create lies.
Hey, can I come over later so we can work on our history project together?
Mia asked. I began to freak out internally because I remembered she lived across the street from where I used to live and she'd eventually notice that I just wasn't there. I can't tonight, sorry. I've got a hot date with Chris. She shrugged and started talking about something else. I began to hate my life. I was used to being rich and popular, and part of me felt like this was all a terrible dream. After school, I pretended like I had to leave early. I hid in a small storage room until I was sure that everyone had left, and then I walked to the bus stop and took a bus home. I continued this routine for a while, and I started to get used to my new life. I stopped being so judgmental of my biological parents and even became friendlier to my brothers and sisters. In fact, I started to like my little sisters a lot. They looked up to me because they thought I was so interesting and beautiful. I still called my other parents from time to time, and I missed them to shreds, but life had to go on. I finally began to feel at peace until the most dreadful morning I ever had at school.
Carmen, Camilla uploaded this long video about how you're a fraud. I don't even know whether to believe it. It's awful.
Mia said as I got off the school bus. She shoved her phone into my hands and I watched the video. It showed me walking away from school and getting on the bus. Then it showed where I got off and zoomed in onto my house. My house, which was falling apart. Camilla said,
Carmen pretends to be rich and amazing, but the truth is that she's poor. She was adopted by these rich people for a while, but now she's gone back to live with her real parents. This is why there are no parties. She's been lying to all of her friends too.
I couldn't believe that Camilla would follow me home and record me just to become more popular. How did she even know all of this? I started crying. It's all true, Mia. I've been living there for months. I hate it. She looked at me seriously, then walked away. I couldn't believe that my best friend in the whole world ignored me while my life had fallen apart. That night, I got home and nothing could have prepared me for what I would see next. My original mom and dad were sitting in Janet and George's kitchen.
You see, I told you this experiment would have been too much. She looks devastated.
What experiment?
Your mom and I decided that your life was too easy. You wasted a lot of money and you didn't seem grateful for all the wonderful things you had. So we hired these actors to pretend to be your biological parents. You can come home with us tonight, though.
I hate you guys. This was torture. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Well, didn't you learn a valuable lesson?
I couldn't believe it. While the lesson was useful, I thought it was a bit excessive. I was extremely grateful that I was no longer poor, though, and when it was time to leave, I literally hugged my dad's car seats all the way home. I changed a lot. Instead of spending money on parties, I saved money and used it to help to take care of Janet and George's children. I was still grateful for all they had done for me, and I wanted the best for their kids. I still call them my little brothers and sisters. I remember that being popular doesn't really mean that I have true friends, so I am working on becoming a better person, and I hope that I will be able to attract the right crowd when I do.